We have with us Mr. Puneet Chandok, President, India and South Asia, Microsoft. Puneet, many thanks for speaking to PTI. It is wonderful to have you with us.
No, glad to reconnect, Mamita, and I'm so thrilled to be talking to you today. And just completed a year at Microsoft, and time flies when you're having a good time and you're having impact. So it's been an incredible year. I think a few things that I'm really excited about. One, I think AI in India, Mamita, has moved from what I used to see skepticism to optimism to real impact on the ground, and we are seeing some real interesting use cases emerge. Second, Microsoft, we're becoming the Copilot for India. Copilot is the new UI for AI. It's become the verb for AI. But we're truly becoming Copilots to India's transformation, which I'm really excited about. And then third, we constantly ground ourselves in our mission of making AI for everyone in India a reality. I think that's something to strive for, and that's something that we're working very hard on.
So Puneet, earlier this year, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, during his visit to India, talked about Microsoft's commitment to India's transformation into an AI nation, both in terms of skills, but also how AI is infused into industries and across sectors. How is that playing out for Microsoft in the India market?
Absolutely. In fact, Microsoft is much more than a technology business in India, Mamita. We truly want to be a force that moves India and South Asia forward. And I think on to Satya's commitments, I'll give you two things, right? One, the AI Advantage program that we launched, where we're going to train 2 million people in India over the next 2 years on AI, and that's way on its way and already in flight. I'll give you another one, which is very close to my heart, 75,000 women developers in India to be trained and certified as part of our Code Without Barriers program, which is really exciting. We just launched the Microsoft Micro Degree on AI with the Ministry of Skills Development, where we're going to ITIs and institutes across the country and using those institutes to really get young people in India trained on AI, and not just trained on AI, but actually get them jobs. So absolutely in progress and pushing really hard.
Let's step back a bit and look at Microsoft in India. India is a sizable market for almost all big tech companies, all tech giants. How does India stack up for Microsoft, and what are the growth drivers or growth levers for you in the India market?
First of all, India is one of the most exciting markets in the world today for technology companies, and it's no surprise that it's one of the most exciting markets for us as well. It's also one of the fastest growing markets for Microsoft, one of the fastest growing regions across the world. And that's the reason you're seeing a lot of commitment, a lot of investments, a lot of impact. In terms of our growth bets, the mission is, as I said, AI for everyone, right? We're truly energized by that mission. And we're doing 3 things to make that happen. Number one is, how do we bring the best of Microsoft, all our capabilities, Microsoft Research in India, IDC, Cloud and AI, a lot of the products that we're building are being developed in India. How do we bring the best of that to our customers and partners in India? Second, how do we move the country forward? Going back to the AI fluency examples that I gave you, the Microsoft Micro Degree training 2 million people in India, a lot of work which is billion scale impact, like Shiksha Copilot that we just launched, which is helping teachers in government schools do their curriculum planning in 60 to 90 seconds and not take a couple of hours. And then third, build India's most inclusive, most diverse, India's best technology team. Because if we don't do that, Momita, none of the other things that I said will come to life, right? So that's the mission, that's what we ground ourselves in, and really committed to making AI for everyone a reality in India.
If I look at Microsoft, you have a sizable presence in the India market. How are you leveraging on the engineering and design and development side? What kind of products are coming out of India? Are they products which are India first products, or products that are actually developed here for larger markets, emerging markets or other markets as well?
So I'll say 2 things. One, I think a lot of our products, or most of our products, are customer first, right? So we work backwards from customers' requirements. And so, for example, the Copilot Wave 2 launch that we just did recently, it's the next iteration of our Copilot products, and it does a few things, right? One, rather than just taking individual productivity and lifting that with Copilots, it's now linking the entire organization together, breaking silos and really lifting organizations together. Doesn't matter if you're using Teams or Microsoft Office or Windows, we're bringing all of this together, right? So it's customer backed based on the feedback, and we're constantly iterating and building. Second, to your point, we're bringing one Microsoft together in India. As you rightly said, we've got massive capabilities in India. IDC, which is our development center, Cloud plus AI, Microsoft Research has a massive presence in India, one of the largest presence outside the US. We're bringing all of those capabilities together for our customers and working truly as one Microsoft to make sure that the AI for everyone mission in India is truly a reality.
Puneet, how big is the India opportunity for Microsoft? Can you give us some numbers in terms of scale and size of the addressable market for you here?
So as I said, India is one of the most exciting markets in the world. Whatever lens you take to it, right? Demand lens, supply lens, impact in the world. From a demand perspective, more than 7,000 listed companies in India, so massive runway, third largest startup ecosystem in the world, so we're excited about that. 60 million plus small and medium businesses, and we've got a fairly large SMB business or SMC business that we focused on. So real opportunity from a demand perspective, real runway. From a supply perspective, if I look at GitHub, India is just behind the US, close to 15 million developers in India are now on GitHub. We will overtake the US in the next 2 or 3 years, but India will be the largest population of developers on GitHub. So from a supply perspective, it's an exciting opportunity. Every sixth AI researcher, AI developer in the world today is coming from India, so we're excited about from a supply perspective in India. And then impact on the world. There's a recent study which said every fourth employee that will get added to the workforce in the next 10 years will come from India, right? So I think just the impact that we'll have on the world is incredibly important. And then working from all of those opportunities, in India, our strategy is very simple on AI. 3 things. One, what I call zero-shot innovation, which is Copilots. We all using Copilots all the time. It's driving productivity, it's driving efficiency. In fact, this morning I was working with Copilot preparing for this interview. And I'm saying, Momita is coming to meet me, what questions should I expect? And it really helped me prepare for this interview in half the time. And hopefully made me more effective. But zero-shot innovation, Copilots. The second is a set of use cases that we're building by industry. Right, so if you're a pharma company or a healthcare company or a manufacturing company or a bank, we're building a set of use cases. I'll give you some examples. Axis Bank is using Copilots to drive productivity. I'll give you some IT services examples where companies are building in India, not just for India, but for the world. Cognizant, with 25,000 Copilot seats today, is driving efficiency across the organization. HCL is building GenAI into their AI Force solution and really thinking about software development and productivity in a different way. Infosys, 18,000 people, GitHub, customer zero for us, 18,000 people, 7 million lines of code written. Right, so there's real impact happening across industries. And then third, also innovating at the infrastructure layer. So Sarvam.ai, which is a very interesting startup out of India, is building on top of Microsoft OpenAI to really take AI into the hands of every Indian, to everybody in Bharat, as they call it, in 20 plus languages across the country, right? So massive opportunity in India, demand, supply, impact on the world. Our strategy on making AI for everyone is clear. Zero-shot innovation with Copilots, use cases by industry, and then infrastructure innovation with startups like Sarvam, which we are all very excited about.
What are Microsoft's investment and hiring plans for India, and how are you going to scale your engineering and development teams here?
We're constantly looking at areas where we need to invest, and this could be infrastructure. It could be building data centers as an example. It is people. As I said, one of our mission statement is build India's best, most diverse, most inclusive technology team. Also bringing a lot of our capabilities to our customers and partners so that they can get real value out of this, right? So constantly looking at areas where we need to invest. And investing for India, as we see, as I said, one of the fastest growing regions in the world, real opportunity for us to make a dent and move the country forward.
Puneet, I want to sort of double click on the AI and Gen AI bit. There is a lot of concern globally, even in India, on what this kind of productivity and efficiency does to hiring. There are worries around layoffs. So obviously, if we are doing the same work smarter with the machines and now with AI, what does it mean in terms of hiring plans across industries and sectors? Do you see AI displacing workers? This has been a global debate, and I would like to understand, how you sort of weigh in on this, being a tech giant which is betting so big on AI.
So I would say a few things, right? One, I think the conversation needs to shift from challenges to real opportunities, at least in India, where we're not short of opportunities and things to do, right? We're always supply constrained, not demand constrained. And I'll give you 2-3 examples on how AI is really making a difference. One is just reducing the digital divide in this country. Like a large part of India doesn't speak English, but a lot of tools that we've been building are built in English. But with AI now, and Azure OpenAI AI Translator, we're now getting to 20 out of 22 languages in India, which is roughly 90-95% of the country. Imagine if we can get that part of India into the workforce, delivering impact, building for India, right? So really reducing digital divide, which is a fascinating opportunity. Second is doing things that we couldn't do at the scale that India requires. Like the ITC Krishi Mitra app that we built. 100,000 farmers today are using it to get productivity, get their crops right. So it's a real opportunity to do that. That said, I think some of the challenges around jobs and And some of the things that you said are real challenges, and we take them as challenges and work backwards to say, listen, how do we build technology that is built in a responsible way? How do we make sure we skill India at a scale like nobody's ever done before? The Air Advantage program with 2 million people in India, 75,000 women. We're training government officers. We're training schools, children in schools, right? So constantly, how do we make India ready to become an AI-first nation, and not just use AI in India, but also get India to truly leapfrog and lead the world?
Puneet, some say AI is going to be disruptive, others say it's going to be transformative. How do you see Gen AI playbook for you, in terms of AI, Gen AI both? How is that going to be leveraged by Microsoft internally for your own operations, as well as for businesses that you serve?
So I'd say a couple of things. One, I'll let the numbers, because there's also camp. You said people say it's disruptive, transformative. There's some people who also say this is not leading to value yet, right?
Correct. That is another thing I wanted to ask you, because there is also a view that a lot of investments are going into building out these giant infrastructures, but we are not really seeing, I think, the kind of results which are commensurate with the kind of investments that have been put into it.
See, I could even preempt a question you're going to ask me, because my Copilot was telling me that
Copilot
Momita is going to go there.
My questions.
No,
okay.
It didn't want me, it prepared me. But I'll say, listen,
Right.
let the numbers speak first of all, right? So there's an IDC study which said for every dollar that customers today are spending on AI, they're getting $3.8 of value. There's another study which says partners who are working on Microsoft products, for every dollar of Microsoft revenue, if they're doing services, they make $8.4. If they're doing software product development, they make $10.9, right? So I'll let the numbers speak on impact. But across the country, right? I mean, across industries, we're seeing use cases. That's why I said we've moved from skepticism to optimism to real impact. I'll give you a few examples. L&T. They run complex projects across the country, lots of legal documents, lots of project documents. They're using AI to get real insights so that they can really focus. Make My Trip, right? They're building personalized travel experiences in languages across India. ClearTax, which is, I love the use case, 20 million gig force workers in India were not getting the tax support, and they've used Gen AI to build it. So real impactful use cases across the board. To your question on how Microsoft is using it, across the board, I'll give you an example of our sales organizations. Salespeople who are using Copilots, as an example, are getting more pipe. They're seeing more conversion, better win rates. Our customer service and support teams are using AI to drive better customer experience, better CSAT, and drive a ton of efficiency. And then finally, all of us at Microsoft are using all our Copilot products, right? I told you about my usage, right? Like half my emails I don't type anymore, right? Copilot helps me type emails. Copilot summarizes all my meetings. Every meeting I go to gives me a summary, gives me a set of actions to follow up on.
And that is unlocking your time to do something more productive, perhaps take on things that you couldn't earlier.
Exactly, and you mentioned Satya's visit, right? One thing that Satya said which was fascinating was AI reduces the floor and raises the ceiling. It reduces the floor because it allows you to get started much earlier, right? I started learning coding 30 years ago. It took me a couple of years to kind of get a sense of like when I could really build with coding. Today with AI, you can start much earlier because you've got information at your fingertips, right? The Copilot helps you figure out, like for this interview, help me prepare in 15, 20 minutes versus taking 2 hours. So it reduces the floor, you can get started earlier. It also raises the ceiling. So if you take the grunt work out, right? Like a lot of us have eventually become digital clerks, right? Because we're just doing emails and we're categorizing stuff and sending this to that person and following up. You take all of that digital clerk work and grind work out. Imagine how much more we can do with the time that we're freeing up. Like Microsoft 365 Copilot, at the minimum, we're seeing 30 minutes per user per day saved. Now imagine 30 minutes back to you, Momita. Like you could do so much more. GitHub Copilot, 55% productivity for developers. Imagine how much more they could build, right? So absolutely exciting times to use these tools to drive productivity and also create more value because you get a lot of time back now.
Before I come to some of the issues like privacy and safeguards, and we heard Prime Minister talking about that at India Mobile Congress this week, I want to ask you about this whole, India vision and strategy for Microsoft. Satya Nadella has been he's been cheering the India story. He's known to also wear Team India jersey and cheer the cheer Team India. For Microsoft as you look over the next 5, 10, 15 years, India is on a roll in terms of the growth of economy. It has outlined a clear vision to become a fully developed economy by 2047. Where does Microsoft fit into that game plan?
Again, I'll go back to the statement saying we genuinely believe we're more than a technology company in India, right? We're here to make a dent. We're here to move the country forward. We're here to make sure that India is ready, and not just ready, but is also leapfrogging the world to become an AI-first nation. And again, going back to our mission on making AI for everyone real, right? And I think that has three implications. One, how do we use AI to drive innovation in this country? And not just for this country, but also India to the world. Some of the examples I gave you, Infosys, Cognizant, HCL, they're building for the world. A lot of our B2B SaaS companies like InMobi, they're also building for the world. So again, how do we really drive innovation with AI? Second is trust and safety. I think you mentioned privacy and data, right? Like when you're building technologies that can change the world, you have to build them responsibly, right? So how do we bring the right privacy, the right transparency, the right safeguards into it? So constantly working in that. And third is democratizing it, right? The real value of AI is if we can get this to the hands of every Indian. And we're working very hard with, for example, the training programs that I spoke about, the application that we're building, Jugalbandi, I'm sure you heard about it, Shiksha Copilot, the ITC Krishi Mitra app. There's a lot that's going on which is going to the grassroots of this country. So again, the ambition is from boardrooms to classrooms, right? From companies to communities. It's not just about a few companies having these tools, it's about end-to-end impact.
Let's look at the regulatory framework now. Prime Minister earlier this week at the India Mobile Congress emphasized the need for a global framework for digital technology and ethical use of AI. He said security cannot be an afterthought in an interconnected world. As a leader of one of the biggest tech companies in India, what are your thoughts? And are you in favor of a rule-based framework for digital technologies?
So I think the first thing I'll say is Microsoft is fully committed to making sure that we're compliant with all the regulatory requirements, and as the new regulatory requirements evolve, absolutely making sure that we're fully compliant. Second, I think the regulatory conversations that we're having are actually pushing all tech companies, not just Microsoft, to re-emphasize and reinforce the commitments that we're making on safeguarding data, privacy, transparency, removing biases. I actually think it's a step in the right direction because it forces all of us to recommit to these, and we're constantly working on them. I loved what you said about security, quoting the Prime Minister. The way we think about this at Microsoft is security by design. You're right, it can never be an afterthought. It's job number one, security above everything else. So everything that we do is focused on making sure that everything that we're building is ready, is secure for our customers, data safeguarded, privacy, biases, transparency, all of these things, all those principles are kept in mind as we're building these products.
Puneet, specifically, what are your thoughts on the regulatory structures that are emerging in India? Say for data protection bill, we have now rules which are on way. There is the draft digital competition bill, or the drafts of which, the versions of which is in debate, discussion. As India tightens the regulations around user privacy and safety, how will it impact, how will it bring about a behavioral changes? I beg your pardon. How will it bring about behavioral changes in tech companies in general and in Microsoft in particular?
See, again, as I said, we're fully committed to these, right? We want to make sure, and we will make sure that we follow all regulations. We are fully compliant as Microsoft. Also, not just follow these regulations, but also bring best practices and ideas from the world to the government. And we're constantly in dialogue, helping them, sharing all the learnings that we have across the globe. Because as you rightly said, the entire world is figuring out regulation on this topic. It's not just India. So that's one. Second, I think getting industry bodies to come together and have debates. So for example, NASSCOM, CII, there are lots of conversations that we are part of where we are again bringing ideas, suggestions so that we can then go back into the government and really help them frame some of these policies. Like our take is a lot of these policies are not just challenges, but they are a call to action for all of us to reaffirm, recommit data privacy, all the things that you have spoken about, and make sure that security, privacy, transparency, bias removal are priority number one for all of us. And I don't think it's a challenge. In fact, it's an opportunity to reaffirm and recommit for all of us.
Puneet, we started off with your 1 year, completion of 1 year at Microsoft. Let's also close with that. Do you think it is more difficult for leaders to navigate the disruptive, transformative world as is unfolding right now? As a leader yourself, what are the kind of changes that you see, sort of unfolding in the world right now? Is it more difficult? Is it more of a challenge for leaders now?
You bet it's more of a challenge, right? I think the world around us is spinning at a speed that we are not used to, right? I think the pace of innovation, the speed of takeoff is just unlike anything we've seen before. And I generally think it requires a different leadership model. And my personal principles on this, and I follow these principles, and And I call this the base model, but it starts with B, which is belief, A is ability, S is scale. You spoke about scale and leverage, and finally a sense of enough. And let me give you a little bit of color on each of these, right? So it starts with belief, and belief comes before ability, right? If you don't believe in what you're doing, some of the things that we spoke about, it's very hard for, like, lack of belief will kill more dreams in this country than ambition, than ability, right? So it starts with belief, and all of us have to believe that we can make a dent and make a difference. Then comes ability. You have to constantly learn. With AI, with technology, every day the underlying technology we're working with is changing, right? So I tell my teams the opposite of knowledge on AI is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. So how are you constantly learning, how you're building ability, how are you constantly building relationships, how are you constantly bringing energy to every conversation that you do as a leader, because lots of new things are changing around you. So ability comes second. Third is scale and leverage. How do you scale? Like in India, we've got 25,000 plus people now, lots of engineers, lots of teams that are working with customers. How do you drive culturally all of those people to bring the best of Microsoft to our customers? How do you drive clarity of thinking? How do you demand performance? How do you bring empathy to every conversation? And then finally, the last, which is E, which is a sense of enough, right? Just time has to matter now, right? This idea that we'll get all of this done and one day we'll all have this future oasis of relaxation and this is a seductive idea, it's not true. But how do you have a sense of enough? And how do you constantly ground yourself into the sense of purpose? AI for everyone is something that I get really excited about. Every morning I get up, I want to make that real, whatever it takes, right? So that's my principle, which is belief. Think about that. Build abilities by learning and relationships, scale and leverage through people, and then finally a sense of enough so that you ground yourself.
Before we close, I want to get a final word in from you on the tech budgets and tech spends. We're also nearing the end of a calendar year, starting of a new one, and planning and strategy and all of those things. We've seen over the last few years a sort of a slowdown, if I may term it that. Post-COVID, there was, of course, a surge in tech spends, and then we saw it tapering down a bit. There were layoffs in the industry. There was a general sense of slowdown. How do you see the tech budgets for next year?
So we're not seeing a slowdown. So just some examples, right? There are 500 plus customers today in India using Azure OpenAI. Some of the examples I gave you: Air India, Zomato, Meesho, L&T, Genpact. I could go on, right? So some of the largest corporations, digital businesses, startups, SMBs are using Azure OpenAI, which we're really excited about. 10x growth in Copilots that I spoke about. So there's a real momentum that's building around AI. Also, I think when you think about AI, Momita, it's not just about IT budgets. The problems that we're solving are business problems, right? Some of the examples that I just gave you, like the L&T example, right? Where we're looking at legal documents, project documents, making project execution much better. So this is not just IT budgets we're talking about business budgets now, because these are business problems that we're solving. And net, I would just say, listen, I don't think we're seeing a slowdown. We're actually seeing a lot of momentum build, especially on AI. Across those three, which is Copilots, where 10x growth, use cases by industry, solving real business problems, and then real innovation that we're driving at the infrastructure level. So we're actually super excited about what's out there for us, both in terms of building AI and also taking it to our customers and delivering real impact.
And this is in the context of India as well.
We're talking about India. So I was giving the numbers that I gave you were Indian numbers. Globally, I'll say like 85% of Fortune 500 companies today are using Azure OpenAI. There are more Azure OpenAI customers out there than Starbucks outlets. So the momentum is real, and that's why I said it's out from the labs. 2023 was all about labs and pilots and POCs. 2024 is becoming the year where there's real impact, and we've moved from skepticism to real optimism and real impact on the ground. And we're just getting started. I think a lot more to do.
Puneet, when we sort of infuse so much of technology in our world, in our lives and in businesses, there is also the fear of, what it does in case of outages, what it does to sectors like aviation or banking. As a global leader which has faced these kind of situations this year, what are your thoughts?
Again, as I said, right, which is for us, a few things are job number one: security, secure by design. Operational reliability of our platforms and some of the things that we spoke about, right? So we have to just make sure that we constantly work at that. And then finally, working very closely with customers to ensure that we architect their application in the right way. We've got our customer success teams in India. We've got our engineering talent in India, where we're looking at all the applications that our customers run on us and make sure they're secure by design, they're architecturally strong, and then constantly invest in people, capacity, given just the opportunity and runway we have in India. So I can assure you that we're working really hard to make sure that all the applications that our customers are building on us deliver the impact that they need for their end customers, and we bring the best of Microsoft to them.
Puneet, it was wonderful speaking to you. Many thanks for speaking to PTI.
Thank you, Mamita. It's been a pleasure.